The tourism board sells you rolling Ozark hills and a friendly porch wave. The real Arkansas runs on roads that dead, end into rivers and laws that defy basic physics. So buckle up. Number 1. Let's start small with the town of Toad Suck, a real name on a real map, not a nickname, not a joke, an actual dot on the Arkansas Atlas. Its annual Toad Suck Days festival changes its own parade route almost every year, because nobody in charge can quite agree on which street can actually handle the crowd this time around. Most towns pick a route once and stick with it for a generation. This one apparently redesigns civic infrastructure by vibes, on the fly, every single spring. Number 2. In one Arkansas municipality, it is technically illegal to honk your horn near a sandwich shop after 11 at night. Somewhere, a city council sat down, discussed sandwiches, discussed horns, and decided the two together needed their own statute. Who was the offender that made this necessary? Number 3. Arkansas has a genuine diamond field, where visitors are legally allowed to dig with a garden trowel and keep whatever they find. Crater of Diamond State Park is that field. Most working diamond sites have armed security and metal detectors. This one's answer was, essentially, bring a shovel. Number 4. In Little Rock, it's on the books that you can't flip a switch to kill the lights mid-performance during a live show. Somewhere in the state archive is a formal document specifically banning theater blackout gags. Someone, at some point, ruined it for everybody. Number 5. The Ozark region has mountain roads laid out before cars existed and never updated for them. Switchbacks fold in on themselves so many times a 10-mile trip can eat 40 minutes. Could you imagine commuting through hairpin turns every single day just to reach the grocery store? Number 6. A stretch of the Mississippi River shifted so much over the last 2 centuries that a sliver of land got legally assigned to Tennessee, even though it now sits geographically on the Arkansas side of the water. Rivers move constantly. State lines, apparently, are not allowed to move with them. Number 7. Fayetteville locals still repeat, with a straight face, that it's illegal within city limits to sell your own children. A fine rule to have, sure, but the fact that it needed formal municipal wording at all says a great deal about the paperwork habits of whoever wrote it. Number 8. The town of Smackover got its name from a French phrase meaning field of oil, mangled by English speakers into something that sounds like a finishing move. Nobody ever corrected it. It just became the permanent name on every map, sign, and mailbox from that point on. Number 9. Multiple stretches of interstate were built directly on unstable clay soil that shifts with every rainfall. So entire highway sections buckle and crack on a predictable seasonal schedule. Crews just repave it, year after year, instead of fixing the ground underneath. This next infrastructure fail defies basic physics, and it's not even the worst one yet. Number 10. The state capitol building in Little Rock was modeled closely on the U.S. Capitol, dome and all, except built at a smaller scale with proportions slightly off, so visitors get the unmistakable feeling they're looking at a replica rather than the genuine article. Ambition, meet budget. Number 11. Arkansas has a rule against marketing a product as Arkansas made, if it wasn't, which sounds reasonable until you learn enforcement is so uneven that plenty of roadside gift shops selling handmade Ozark crafts are quietly stocked from the same out of state warehouse. Number 12. The town of Gravette holds an annual celebration whose scheduled activities have changed so many times over the decades that longtime residents genuinely disagree on what the event is even supposed to commemorate anymore. Everyone shows up, nobody remembers why. Number 13. Several small towns along the Arkansas River built their water treatment plants below the documented historical flood line. A decision that seemed fine right up until the river did exactly what rivers are known to do. The facilities flooded more than once, and were rebuilt in the identical spot each time. Who approved this blueprint the second time? Number 14. Arkansas's state insect and state instrument were both decided in the same legislative session. Apparently there was time that day to formally debate bugs and fiddles, but somehow never quite enough time left over to address the actual roads. Number 15. The town of Marked Tree is named after a single boundary marker tree used by colonial surveyors. That tree has not existed for well over a century. The town kept the name anyway, a permanent tribute to a landmark nobody currently alive has ever laid eyes on. Number 16. Have you ever seen a local law this oddly specific? One Arkansas town has an ordinance on the books banning residents from keeping an alligator in their bathtub. Not because that's common, but because at some point one very determined resident made this clarification necessary. Number 17. Hot Springs built its entire historic bathhouse road directly over active natural thermal springs, then later discovered the geothermal activity was slowly shifting the building foundations. Instead of relocating anything, the city simply added support beams and called it character. Number 18. The state legislature once spent genuine floor time debating whether pie qualifies as a vegetable for procurement purposes in a dispute unrelated to any federal nutrition rule. It went nowhere, but apparently felt important enough to occupy actual session hours. Number 19. The town of Mountain View built its own courthouse on a slope so steep the building effectively has two separate ground floors, depending on which side you walk in from. Nobody involved considered simply choosing flatter ground nearby. Number 20. And somehow we're still just scratching the surface. A bridge outside Beebe was built, condemned, rebuilt, and condemned again within a 20-year window, all on the exact same unstable creek bed, using roughly the same engineering approach each time, as if the creek might eventually just calm down and stop being a creek. Would you trust a bridge with that resume? Number 21. The town of Rector adopted a giant fiberglass tomato as its unofficial mascot, despite the town's actual agricultural output being overwhelmingly soybeans. Consistency, in this case, was apparently entirely optional. Number 22. One small Arkansas town reportedly has a rule making it a punishable offense to mispronounce the town's own name on official signage, meaning a sign company could theoretically be fined for getting the local dialect wrong. The town planners somehow get even lazier from here, though, so hold that thought. Number 23. A stretch of land where Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas meet was surveyed so poorly in the 1800s that 3 separate counties across 3 separate states have, at various points, all formally claimed jurisdiction over the exact same gas station. Number 24. Trails through Devil's Den State Park were carved directly through unreinforced sandstone caves for decades, resulting in periodic rock slides that shut down entire sections indefinitely. Each time, the fix has simply been a hand-painted sign reading, "Trail closed." Number 25. Could you imagine having to explain this to visitors? Arkansas has an official state soil, named through a formal legislative act, meaning a single type of dirt currently holds a more precise government designation than most of the state's actual infrastructure maintenance budget. Number 26. Dyess was built from scratch in the 1930s as a perfectly gridded planned farming community, and yet within a single generation, so many original street names had been swapped that longtime families couldn't agree on their own childhood addresses. Number 27. There is a standing state law prohibiting transporting livestock in the passenger seat of a vehicle, which strongly implies this was, at some point, common enough to require its own dedicated statute. One can only imagine the incident that made it necessary. Number 28. A section of Highway 7, one of the most scenic drives in the state, was built with so many blind curves through the Ozarks that engineers eventually had to bolt traffic mirrors onto multiple intersections, just so drivers could see oncoming cars they otherwise had zero chance of spotting. Number 29. Crosset has lived for decades with a persistent, unmistakable paper mill smell that locals have nicknamed almost affectionately, despite repeated complaints and environmental reviews. At this point, removing the odor entirely might genuinely upset longtime residents. Number 30. Would you ever move to a town like this? One municipality has an ordinance banning ice cream sales after 9 p.m. on Sundays. A leftover blue law nobody has formally repealed even though it hasn't been enforced within living memory. Number 31. Multiple low water bridges along the Buffalo National River flood, completely under entirely normal rainfall, cutting communities off for days at a time, and the state has repeatedly declined to elevate them, citing cost, despite this happening on a near-annual schedule. Number 32. This is where things stop being quirky small town stuff and start becoming genuinely reality breaking, because the scale of the next entries stops being one town's problem and starts being the whole state's. Everything up to this point, the tomato mascots, the swapped street names, the alligator bathtub rule, can at least be explained away as small town charm gone slightly sideways. What comes next can't. Number 33. Arkansas's own Capitol building sits on a hill that used to hold the old state penitentiary, and construction crews reportedly kept unearthing decades old prison foundations well into the modern building's construction, forcing repeated unplanned redesigns mid-project on the seat of state government itself. Number 34. An entire county courthouse was rebuilt 3 separate times in the same documented flood, prone location after being destroyed by the same river twice. And each rebuild reportedly used the exact same original blueprints, flood risk fully included, right down to the same low doorways and the same ground level records room. As if the river hadn't already proven its point twice over, and clearly meant to make it a third time too. Number 35. A stretch of interstate near the Mississippi River was constructed on a foundation state engineers had already documented as sinking before construction even finished. And the official response wasn't to fix the sinking, it was to schedule repaving around it, indefinitely, forever. Number 36. Arkansas's boundary with Mississippi has shifted so many times as the river itself changed course that small pockets of Arkansas land are now stranded on the Mississippi side of the water, and vice versa, creating orphan little territories that, to this day, nobody fully administers. Number 37. The state has, more than once, seriously studied relocating its entire capital city over persistent Arkansas river flooding, a debate that resurfaces roughly every generation, gets an expensive formal study, and then gets quietly shelved every single time without ever being resolved. Number 38. A road near the Ozark National Forest was mapped incorrectly by state surveyors so long ago that GPS systems still periodically reroute travelers onto a path that, in physical reality, has not existed as a drivable road since a landslide decades ago erased it entirely. Number 39. A small town's public water supply was built directly downstream from a known, uncapped old mining site. And rather than relocate the water intake to a safer stretch upstream, the state's actual proposed fix was simply to test the water more often and hope for the best, indefinitely as an official long-term policy. Number 40. This next one somehow tops all of it. Arkansas's own legislature has, on more than one occasion, passed laws that directly contradict earlier laws still technically active on the books, creating legal gray zones so tangled that state attorneys have publicly admitted, on record, they aren't entirely sure which version of certain statutes is currently enforceable. Number 41. That means an entire state government has, at times, been unable to definitively say which of its own laws currently apply, a level of institutional confusion most towns on this list would never dare aim for. And yet here we are, at the actual state capital, not a roadside gas station or a fiberglass tomato stand. If a small town did this, you'd laugh. When the state itself does it, you start double-checking your own paperwork. Number 42. Every entry before this one was a single town, a single bridge, a single festival. This is a statewide legal identity crisis. Hiding quietly behind the same tourism board photos of rolling hills and friendly porch waves that opened this entire list. Number 43. And finally, the fact that ties the whole list together. All 42 of those glitches, the switchback roads, the flood-prone courthouses, the contradictory laws, the tomato mascots, the alligator bathtub rule, exist simultaneously, in the same state, at the same time, under the same government, layered on top of each other like geological strata of bad decisions. And somehow, life there simply continues, unbothered, day after day, as if none of it is unusual at all. So there it is. 43 reminders that the line between quirky southern charm and how does this town even function is thinner than anyone at the tourism board would like to admit. Every state has its oddities, sure, but Arkansas seems to treat basic infrastructure logic as more of a gentle suggestion than an actual rule, and treats, we've always done it this way, as a perfectly valid substitute for an engineering study. And honestly, that's part of the charm. Right up until you're the one stuck on a flooded low water bridge at midnight, wondering why nobody ever just built the thing a little higher. So now it's your turn. Seriously. Which one of these bizarre Arkansas facts do you think deserves the top spot for sheer "how did nobody stop this" energy? Drop your pick in the comments. I genuinely want to know which one broke your brain the most. And if you enjoyed digging through the glitches in the map with me today, stick around, because there are plenty more states out there with their own baffling blueprints just waiting to be exposed. Subscribe now if you want to come along for the next one.